At 2 a.m., in a garage in Fresno, California, a man named Nobody is standing over a pressure washer, and it's making him $340,000 a year. He doesn't have a pitch deck. He doesn't have a Patreon. He's never once used the word disrupt. What he has is a truck, 4 employees, and a list of gas station parking lots that pay him $180 a visit to get the gum stains off the concrete. You've walked past 100 businesses like his. You didn't see them because you weren't built to see them. Your brain was trained by every startup story you've ever consumed to look for the shiny thing, the app, the brand, the idea that sounds exciting at a dinner party. Boring doesn't get a headline. Boring doesn't get a TED Talk. But boring, it turns out, is where almost all of the actual money in America quietly lives. Here's the part nobody tells you. The businesses that make people rich and the businesses that make people famous are almost never the same businesses. You've been sold a version of wealth that requires an audience. Most real wealth requires none at all. So, this isn't a list for entertainment. This is a list of 20 businesses that already exist, that already work, that are already making ordinary people extraordinary money, and the only reason you haven't started one is that nobody ever told you they were an option. By the end of this, you're going to look at plumbing vans and vending machines completely differently. That shift right there is worth more than the next hour of your life spent watching anything else. Think about the last time you scrolled past an ad for a business opportunity. It probably had a private jet in it. Somebody standing on a beach, phone in hand, telling you they built a 7-figure agency from their laptop. You've seen that video 1,000 times, and somewhere between the 100th and the 1,000th viewing, a part of you started to believe that this, the jet, the beach, the phone, was what building wealth actually looked like. It isn't. It never was. That video exists to sell you a course, not a business. The businesses on this list don't have a course attached to them because the people running them are too busy running them to film themselves doing it. Let's go. Tier 1, $180 a day. These are the businesses you could start this month with under $5,000, not because they're small ideas, because they have almost no barrier standing between you and your first customer. Business 1, pressure, washing dust, startup cost, around $3,000 for a used machine and a trailer. In Phoenix, Arizona, a single driveway job runs $150 to $300, and a good operator does 3 to 5 jobs a day. Run the math with me. 3 jobs a day, 5 days a week, at an average of $200 a job. That's $3,000 a week before you've hired a single employee. The man from the opening did this for 14 months solo before he brought on his first hire. Business 2, gutter cleaning. Nobody wants to climb their own ladder in October. In Ohio, a 2-story home runs $120 to $250 per cleaning, and most residential neighborhoods need it done twice a year. One route of 60 houses, done twice annually, is $14,400 a year from a single Saturday route you could run alongside a day job. Business 3, junk removal. You need a truck you probably already own and a $50 permit in most counties. A single cab load in Atlanta goes for $150 to $400, depending on volume. The founder of a junk removal company in Texas started with his 2009 Ford F-150 and $600 in gas money. 11 years later, that company grossed $4.2 million. Business 4, mobile car detailing. Total kit cost, about $800. A full interior and exterior detail in a wealthy zip code runs $150 to $300. You don't need a shop. You need a parking lot and a water source, and half your customers will book you again in 90 days without you asking. Business 5, dog waste removal. Yes, this one makes people laugh until they see the number. A weekly yard cleanup service in a suburban neighborhood runs $15 to $20 a visit. One operator in Minnesota built a route of 240 clients. That's $4,320 a week. He wears gloves and a mask and doesn't say a word about it at parties. And he bought his house in cash 3 years in. Here's the first rule, and I want you to actually sit with this one. Rule number 1. The businesses people are embarrassed to start are usually the ones with the least competition. Everyone wants to open a coffee shop. Nobody wants to pick up dog waste. That gap between wants to and is willing to is where the money hides. There's a specific moment every operator in Tier 1 describes almost the exact same way. It happens somewhere around month 4. You're standing in someone's driveway, soaked from the pressure washer, and a neighbor walks over and asks how much you'd charge to do theirs too. That's the moment the business stops being a task and starts being a machine. Nobody warns you how ordinary that moment feels. There's no music. There's just a guy in a driveway asking a price, and you answering it, and something in your chest quietly recalibrating what work is supposed to look like. Tier 2, $8,000 a month with employees. These businesses need a little more capital, a little more patience, but they scale in a way Tier 1 doesn't. You stop trading your hours and start trading other people's hours. Business 6, vending machines. A single machine costs $2,000 to $4,000, depending on condition, and a good location, a busy break room, a gym, an apartment complex, nets $300 to $500 a month per machine after restocking costs. A route of 15 machines, which one operator in Denver built over 18 months, generates $6,000 to $7,500 a month, and he visits each machine once a week for maybe 20 minutes. Business 7, laundromats. This one surprises people. A well-located laundromat in a working-class neighborhood, one that doesn't require you to be there, generates $8,000 to $15,000 a month in pure cash revenue. The machines run whether you're asleep or awake. A woman in Cleveland bought a struggling laundromat for $110,000 in 2019, changed nothing but the payment system to card readers, and doubled the revenue in 14 months without touching a single wash cycle herself. Business 8, commercial cleaning contracts. Not maid service, office buildings, medical clinics, gyms. A single mid-size office contract pays $1,500 to $4,000 a month, and most cleaning companies run 5 to 15 contracts with a crew of 4 to 6 people. One founder in Charlotte started with one dental office paying him $800 a month. 6 years later, he had 31 contracts and $4.1 million in annual revenue. Business 9, portable toilet rental, construction sites, festivals, weddings. A single unit rents for $150 to $300 a week, and the same unit gets rented 52 times a year with almost zero maintenance beyond a pump-out truck. A company in rural Georgia runs 300 units and grosses $2.3 million a year, and the owner has exactly one employee who isn't family. Business 10, self-storage facilities. This is the quiet giant of boring business. A 50-unit facility in a mid-sized town, built or bought for $400,000 to $700,000, generates $15,000 to $25,000 a month once it's 80% occupied. And self-storage tends to stay full because people would rather pay $80 a month than deal with their own clutter. There is no customer service. There is a gate code and a lock. What almost nobody realizes about self-storage is that the demand goes up during the exact moments life feels the worst. Divorce, downsizing, a parent moving into assisted living. Nobody is happy when they rent a storage unit, but they pay on time, every month, for years, because the alternative is confronting a box of things they're not ready to deal with. That's not a cynical observation. It's just the honest mechanism underneath why this business almost never goes empty. Rule number 2. The second the business requires the owner to be interesting, the ceiling gets lower. Nobody is paying more for their vending machine snack because the guy who filled it has a great personality. That's the whole point. Sit with that laundromat owner in Cleveland for a second. She didn't renovate, she didn't rebrand, she didn't hire a designer to make the space feel more inviting. She replaced coin slots with card readers because she noticed, standing there one Tuesday afternoon, that half her customers were leaving without washing because they didn't have exact change. She fixed a friction point most owners never even see because most owners never stand in their own laundromat long enough to watch how people actually use it. The upgrade cost her $9,000. It paid for itself in 5 weeks. Tier 3, the invisible 6-figure operators. This is where it stops being a side hustle and starts being a business with real infrastructure. You're not doing the work anymore. You're running the machine that does the work. Business 11. HVAC repair. Skilled trade, 6 weeks to a few months of training or apprenticeship, and demand that never disappears because nobody negotiates with their air conditioner in July. An HVAC technician in Texas who went independent after 9 years working for someone else now runs 3 trucks and grossed $890,000 last year, with average callouts at $220 plus parts. Business 12. Plumbing. Same shape, same demand curve. A licensed plumber running 2 vans in Nashville nets around $310,000 in profit annually after paying his 1 employee, and he has never run a single advertisement. Every job comes from a 5-star Google page and word of mouth in a 15-mile radius. Business 13. Pest control. Recurring revenue is the secret weapon here. A quarterly pest control contract runs $120 to $180 per visit, and a technician can service 12 to 15 homes a day. One company in Florida built a 1,400 customer base over 7 years and now runs on autopilot with 4 technicians, generating $1.9 million a year, almost entirely from renewals. Business 14. Septic tank pumping. There is no glamour here. There is a truck, a hose, and a smell most people won't get near. A pumping job runs $300 to $600, and rural counties without municipal sewage lines have zero shortage of demand. One operator in rural Missouri, the only licensed pumper in a 60-mile radius, grossed $610,000 last year, with 2 trucks and no marketing budget at all. Business 15. Locksmith services. Emergency lockouts. Pay premium rates, $75 to $150 for a 5-minute job at 11 p.m., and once you're established, commercial rekeying contracts with property management companies become the steady base underneath the emergency calls. A locksmith in Seattle built a business generating $420,000 a year, split almost evenly between panic calls and boring recurring commercial contracts. Rule number 3. The businesses that fix an emergency will always out-earn the businesses that sell a want. Nobody delays calling a plumber because the toilet is overflowing right now. That urgency is worth real money every single time. The plumber in Nashville still remembers his first year working for someone else, taking home $19 an hour and driving a company van. He wasn't allowed to take home at night. He didn't quit because he had a plan. He quit because he did the math one Sunday on the back of a receipt. What his boss charged the customer, what he actually got paid, and the gap between those 2 numbers sitting there in his own handwriting. He said later it wasn't anger that made him leave. It was arithmetic. 2 years after going independent, that gap became his entire annual profit. Tier 4, the ones that quietly build generational wealth. These take longer. They compound instead of paying out fast. But this is where boring stops being a side income and starts being the thing your kids inherit. Business 16. Coin-operated car washes. Almost fully automated once installed. A 4-bay location generates $6,000 to $12,000 a month. And after the initial $250,000 to $400,000 build-out, ongoing costs are close to just water, electricity, and the occasional repair. A family in Iowa has owned the same car wash location since 1994. Nobody in that family works there. It just runs. Business 17. A TM ownership and placement. You place a machine in a bar, a laundromat, or a convenience store, and split the transaction fees with the location owner. A single well-placed machine can net $300 to $800 a month in pure fee income. One operator in Chicago runs a network of 40 machines across bars and gas stations, generating close to $18,000 a month, and he checks his phone for cash load alerts more often than he physically visits any of them. Business 18. Billboard and outdoor sign leasing. If you own even a small parcel of land near a highway, leasing space to a billboard company can generate $500 to $2,000 a month with a single structure and zero labor. A farmer in Nebraska leases 3 roadside acres for billboards and makes more from that lease than he does from the crops surrounding it. Business 19. Mobile home park ownership. This is the one that private equity firms have been quietly buying up for a decade while nobody was watching. Lot rents of $300 to $500 a month across a 40-lot park generate $12,000 to $20,000 a month, and residents own their own homes, meaning the maintenance burden on the owner is dramatically lower than a typical apartment complex. A couple in North Carolina bought a rundown 32-lot park for $680,000 in 2016. It now generates $14,000 a month in net income, and they've never fixed a single toilet themselves. Business 20. Equipment rental, specifically things like scaffolding, generators, and construction lifts. Contractors need this equipment for weeks, not permanently, and renting is always cheaper for them than owning. A small equipment rental yard in suburban Pennsylvania started with $95,000 in used equipment bought at auction, now generates $310,000 a year in rental income, with a single part-time employee managing pickups and drop-offs. The owner of that yard still goes to the same auction every March, buying used scaffolding at a fraction of retail. Every March, he says the same thing to the same handful of buyers standing next to him. None of them are competing with him because none of them are willing to spend a Saturday inspecting rust on secondhand steel. He's not being modest. He's telling you exactly where the edge lives out loud, and most people still walk past it. Rule number 4. The businesses that build real wealth are the ones that don't need you personally to keep functioning. Every business in this last tier can survive a 2-week vacation without a single phone call. That's not luck. That's what you were actually building this whole list toward. The couple who bought that mobile home park in North Carolina described the first year very differently than you'd expect. It wasn't exciting, it was terrifying. They'd taken out a loan against their own house to close the deal, and for the first 8 months they drove out every single weekend to check on things that didn't need checking, because the silence made them nervous. Nothing breaking felt suspicious after a decade of jobs where something was always breaking. It took them almost a year to trust that the business was actually supposed to feel this quiet. That quiet is the entire point of Tier 4, and almost nobody believes it until they've lived inside it for a while. Now here's the moment you need to sit with, alone, probably at your own kitchen table at some point this week, running your own honest spreadsheet the way that man in the opening scene once had to. None of these 20 businesses require you to be exceptional. They require you to notice what everyone else is stepping over. The market has already told you, in plain numbers, what it's willing to pay for a clean gutter, a working air conditioner, or a locked door opened at midnight. You just weren't listening because you were taught that wealth has to look impressive to be real. It doesn't. It looks like a pressure washer in a garage at 2 a.m. It looks like a folder of contracts with dental offices you've never posted about online. It looks like a gate code and a lock generating income while you're asleep. There's a version of you right now standing at the edge of one of these 20 businesses. Maybe it's the truck you already own. Maybe it's the parking lot you drive past every day without noticing the gum stains on the concrete. Maybe it's just the willingness to do the thing that feels beneath you, for exactly as long as it takes to stop being beneath anyone. Nobody is going to make a documentary about the day you start a gutter cleaning route. Nobody is going to clip it for social media. You will do the work, and the work will be genuinely unremarkable to watch. And that unremarkable nature is precisely why almost no one else is willing to do it. The businesses on this list aren't boring because they don't matter. They're boring because nobody's watching, and that's exactly why they still work.